Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take stacks of information, reports, all sorts of sources, and really boil them down into clear, actionable insights for you.
That's the goal.
And this week, we are diving deep into the Horn of Africa. It's a region often misunderstood, maybe seen through a single lens, but it was absolutely buzzing with complex, really high-stakes activity this past week.
It certainly was. A lot happening.
So our mission today, really, is to navigate all these recent reports, intelligence briefs, diplomatic notes, our own research, and pull out the critical insights. We want to find those surprising connections shaping its future.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding what's really going on.
Exactly. Your shortcut to this vital part of the world.
Yeah.
We're focusing on the first week of September 2025, just a snapshot, but wow, it captured intense diplomatic moves, security issues, economic shifts, and major humanitarian developments.
Everything from a huge dam project reaching a milestone to geopolitical maneuvering for sea access.
And even uncovering hidden financial networks, funding terror. It's all in the mix. Okay, let's start unpacking this with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the GED. It's much more than just concrete and turbines, isn't it?
Oh, definitely not just a dam. Ethiopia is gearing up for this massive inauguration on September 9th.
Yeah.
And for them, it's framed as, a symbol of national pride, sovereignty, a key to energy independence and future development.
We're talking about reinvesting revenues, insisting it won't harm downstream neighbors.
Even highlighting potential benefits like smoother water flow year-round, maybe reducing floods.
But that's not quite how Egypt and Sudan see it.
Not at all. After 14 years of construction, this project has really crystallized a major regional rivalry. For Cairo and Khartoum, this is, well, they use the term existential threat.
And you can see why, right? Egypt gets something like 97% of its freshwater from the Nile.
Exactly. So Ethiopia operating this massive dam unilaterally, without what they consider a legally binding agreement, it's seen as a direct violation of international norms and agreements.
It really poses that fundamental question. How do you share a resource this vital when the stakes are just so incredibly high for everyone involved?
That's the core challenge.
And we saw Egypt and Sudan really coordinating closely this week. High-level talks in Cairo, September 3rd.
Aiming for that unified front.
They're even thinking about lodging a joint objection at the UN Security Council, timed perfectly with the inauguration.
Right. It seems Sudan, which, used to try and play both sides a bit, is now firmly in Egypt's camp on this. That definitely increases the downstream pressure.
Okay, but then there's another layer.
Always is in this region.
Kenya. President William Ruto is heading to the GERD inauguration as the chief guest.
Yes, and that's not just a courtesy visit. It's a powerful symbol. It shows strong regional backing for Ethiopia's energy plans, its climate goals.
And Kenya already benefits, right? They import electricity from Ethiopia.
They do, through the Kenya-Ethiopia Power Interconnector. It's actually crucial for their industrial growth. Their peak demand is now over, 2,392 megawatts.
Wow. So connecting the dots here, you see how one big project, the GERD, can create these deep divisions but also forge new strategic partnerships. It really ripples outwards, affecting diplomacy, economics.
And Egypt's aware of this Kenyan angle. Their foreign minister, Abdullati, was busy making calls.
Trying to counter it, yeah. We saw reports of calls to South Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, Uganda, even Kenya itself.
Laying out Cairo's position on the whole Nile Basin issue. A diplomatic pushback.
Definitely.
Okay, now here's where it gets, I think, even more complex. Ethiopia's ambitions beyond the dam.
The Red Sea access issue.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's statement, calling Ethiopia's landlocked status a historic mistake that needs correcting.
That was on September 1st. Very pointed language. The mistake made 30 years ago will be corrected tomorrow.
And he linked it directly to population growth, economic needs.
And then Ethiopia's military diplomatic chief, General Teshombe Michu, specifically mentioned Eritrea's Assab port as a national objective. That really set alarms bells ringing.
Understandably. How did Eritrea react? Swiftly and strongly. On September 3rd, they blasted it as reckless saber-rattling, a direct threat to their sovereignty. Their information minister, Yemeni Gebremeskel, brought up Eritrea's 1993 independence referendum, calling it an inalienable and exclusive national prerogative, basically saying, hands off Assab.
It throws into sharp relief that clash between historical grievances, national identity, and current geopolitical goal.
Absolutely, especially when it touches on territorial integrity.
In this ambition, this push for sea access, we saw it try to play out with Somaliland too, didn't we?
Right, that potential deal from back in January 2024, access to the Red Sea, maybe 20 kilometers of coastline, a base, a port.
In exchange for Ethiopia recognizing Somaliland.
But it fell apart. Former Somaliland President Muse Bihi Abdi said just recently, September 6th, that pressure from the AU, the Arab League, other big international players, essentially scuttled it.
He even claimed Abiy tried to bring former Somali President Farmajo into the mix.
Yes, but Somaliland apparently blocked that move, wanting to keep control of the negotiations.
So what does all this maneuvering mean for the Red Sea itself, as this critical global shipping lane?
Well, the immediate pushback, both regionally and internationally, shows just how sensitive any move is that could redraw maps or upset the current balance.
Yeah.
Ethiopia feels emboldened, perhaps partly because of the GER and they're reviving these naval ambitions. But it's clearly making coastal states nervous, and external powers are watching very closely. The Red Sea is just too important globally.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, but staying with regional instability. Sudan. The civil war there continues to be just devastating internally, but it's also pulling in outside actors.
It is. We saw Khartoum this week claiming that Colombian nationals were fighting alongside the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF.
And alleging UAE backing for that. They even filed a formal complaint with Somalia about it.
Right, but then you get this web of denials. The UAE strongly denied it back on August 5th and 29th, calling it disinformation. And then they sent senior officials to Mogadishu, trying to smooth things over with Somali leaders, maintain influence in places like Puntland and Somaliland.
It shows the UAE's deep strategic interest in that whole Red Sea corridor, doesn't it? Even when there's friction with the central government in Mogadishu.
Exactly. And it highlights how hard it is to verify claims in a conflict like this. Remember, Sudan tried to take the UAE to the ICJ back in April?
Right, but it was rejected.
Yeah.
Lack of jurisdiction.
Yeah. So it just adds layers of complexity.
And speaking of complexity, the U.S. imposed sanctions on Sudan's army-backed government back in June over alleged chemical weapons use.
Which Sudan denies, calling it political blackmail in a report out September 3rd.
And the RSF is also under U.S. sanctions for alleged genocide in Darfur. It feels like pressure from all sides.
It does. And it raises that difficult question about sanctions. How effective are they really in a state that's already so fragmented? Sometimes they just worsen the humanitarian situation.
And the humanitarian situation is dire. That landslide in Darfur, just horrific.
Truly catastrophic. Terracin Village, August 31st. Reports suggest maybe up to 1,000 people lost. Over 370 bodies recovered by early September.
And happening in a rebel-held area.
Which makes everything harder. You already have famine conditions, cholera outbreaks, and then heavy rains, difficult terrain. Getting aid in is incredibly challenging.
Even the UAE expressed condolences for that tragedy.
They did. Amidst all this, though, there was one small sign of cooperation.
Ah, right. Egypt and Sudan working together on mining.
Yeah, strengthening ties there. Sudan apparently sees Egypt as a potential key gateway for its mineral exports. A small positive in a very bleak picture.
Okay, let's pivot now to Somalia, another place with a really complex security situation and significant internal political friction.
Definitely. On September 1st, we saw Puntland and Jubaland, two major federal member states, take a joint stance against the federal government in Mogadishu.
Over those constitutional changes.
Exactly. They called the amendments illegal, warning they could undermine the whole federal system, especially with national elections planned for 2026.
And how do these internal splits affect the fight against extremist groups?
Well, they create openings, vulnerabilities that groups like al-Shabaab are quick to exploit. We saw them continue attacks, even using the Gaza of war as justification for mortars near Kismayo Airport on September 4th.
But there are counterterrorism successes too.
Yes. U.S. AFRICOM Commander General Dagvin Anderson actually praised Puntland's campaign against ISIS Somalia. He called it a model.
In the Golis Mountains, Operation Hilak.
That's the one. Significant progress reported, hundreds of militants killed, apparently with support from joint airstrikes around September 2nd.
What really jumped out at me from the source material was the detail on ISIS Somalia's finances.
Ah, the Cephalo Pay app.
Yeah, reportedly based in Hargeisa, Somaliland. Allegedly used to launder millions across the region, Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, even into Europe.
In less than 6 months, according to the reports, staff supposedly told to hide links to Premier Bank.
And ISIS Somalia are raising maybe $100,000 a month just through extortion.
It really shows the transnational nature of terror financing and how they exploit informal money transfer systems, the Hawala networks, which so many ordinary people rely on.
It makes you realize the need for much better cross-border cooperation on enforcement.
Absolutely. And Djibouti seems to be a key focus in that investigation now.
Separately, Egypt's getting more involved militarily in Somalia.
Yes, they sent a reconnaissance team to Mogadishu on September 1st. It's ahead of a planned deployment of 1,100 troops under AUZOM, the AU mission.
Their first formal combat contribution. And they're training Somali troops too.
That's right, training 3,000 Somali National Army soldiers. Officially, it's about supporting sovereignty, helping fight al-Shabaab.
But there's suspicion.
From Ethiopia and some Somali regional states, yeah. They see it potentially through the lens of the wider Egypt-Ethiopia tensions over the GERD. Geopolitics creeping in everywhere.
On a more positive note for Somalia, though, debt relief from the Arab League.
Huge news for them, canceling 75% of Somalia's debts, agreed on September 3rd. Egypt apparently played a big role in facilitating that. A historic achievement, they called it.
Good. And Somalia also brought in a mandatory e-visa system, trying to modernize border controls.
And participated in a Djibouti Code of Conduct workshop focused on maritime security. So some positive steps amidst the challenges.
Okay, let's look at Kenya. They had a really busy, diverse week of engagements.
They really did. Beyond the GERD support and their climate diplomacy, the Africa Climate Summit was hosted in Addis starting September 8th.
Right.
Kenya also hosted a big China-Kenya Industrial Expo, the 8th one, I think.
And signed an MOU related to machinery and electronics imports-exports with China.
Yes, on September 4th. China is still their biggest trading partner, over $8 billion in 2024. It shows China's continued economic focus in Africa, offering that alternative development partnership model.
But Kenya's diversifying too. I saw something about India and cinema.
Yeah, quite interesting. India's cinematic diplomacy. The famous filmmaker S.S. Rajamouli.
Oh, the RR director.
That's him. He was scouting locations in Kenya, September 2nd, 3rd, for a huge new film, #SSMB29. Big stars involved.
And the idea is to boost tourism from India.
Exactly. They saw a nearly 12.5% jump in Indian tourists in 2024, projecting maybe 20% more in 2025. So using film to strengthen cultural ties and attract visitors, a bit of soft power play.
Clever.
Yeah.
But not all of Kenya's international partnerships are running smoothly. That issue with the U.S.
The major non-NATO ally status, MNNA.
Yeah. A U.S. Senator, Jim Risch, proposed an amendment back in August to potentially strip Kenya of that designation.
Which is a big deal. Kenya was the first sub-Saharan African country to get it, just in 2023. It's important for defense cooperation.
So that proposal must have sparked some serious debate within Kenya's foreign policy circles.
You'd imagine so. It really underscores how these alliances, these statuses, can be complex, maybe even a bit fragile. A legislative move in Washington can have immediate ripples in Nairobi and potentially affect regional security dynamics.
On a positive note for regional ties, though, Kenya and Uganda removed trade barriers.
Yes, officially gone in September. No more double taxation, no discriminatory excise duties. That's a real boost for the East African community integration.
Good to hear. But there are still local friction points. Reports of Kenyan traders being harassed on the border with Ethiopia.
Along the Kibish-Kengaten border, yeah. By Ethiopian special forces, apparently, in August and September. It shows that even with high-level cooperation, like on GERD, these local tensions can persist.
In AFRICOM's General Anderson was also in Nairobi, right? Discussing counterterrorism.
Yes, on September 3rd. Cooperation on that front remains crucial.
Wow. Okay, that was quite a journey through a week in the Horn of Africa. What an incredibly packed region.
It really is. Teeming with national ambitions, clashing with historical grievances, and this growing footprint of external powers stirring the pot.
We've seen the GERD inauguration sending ripples everywhere, Ethiopia's Red Sea push sparking fears in Eritrea, the deep complexities in Sudan and Somalia.
It's all interconnected, isn't it? This week really shows that. From, subtle things like film diplomacy in Kenya to the stark reality of terror financing networks being exposed, alongside genuine efforts towards economic integration and climate action. It's just this intense mix of challenges and sometimes surprising opportunities.
So for you, the listener, what does all this mean? I think it means understanding the Horn isn't about just catching headlines.
No.
It's about connecting those dots we talked about, seeing the bigger patterns, and appreciating the really diverse motivations driving different actors.
And it leaves us with a pretty significant question to ponder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As all these external powers from the Gulf, from the West, from Asia deepen their engagement, their competition in the Horn,
Yeah.
how is that ultimately going to shape the region's future? Will it push things towards more stability, maybe shared prosperity, or could it actually lead to more fragmentation, more conflict?
That is a powerful thought, something to really mull over as you reflect on this deep dive we've just taken.